You know, when you see a truly great building, have you ever wondered where it really began? It wasn't with a cool sketch, it was with a question. Today, we are diving deep into the most critical step in architecture that you've probably never even heard of, Stage 0 of the RIBA plan of work. It's called the strategic definition, and honestly, getting this right can be the difference between a masterpiece and a total mess.
So how do you think a huge building project really gets going? A brilliant idea on a napkin? Some sudden flash of genius? Well, the real answer might surprise you. It starts long before anyone draws a single line. It starts with a really good plan.
All right, so here's our game plan for today. We're going to look at what happens before that first sketch is even a thought. Then we'll introduce the architect's essential roadmap. We'll zoom right into Stage 0 and its big questions, break down what you actually do, and finally, see why starting smart is pretty much everything.
Okay, just picture this for a second. Kicking off a massive project where the client is kind of fuzzy on what they need, all the different stakeholders have competing ideas, and the budget, well, the budget feels more like a wish than a number. Yeah, it is a complete recipe for disaster. We're talking confusion, delays, and costs that just spiral out of control.
This analogy it hits the nail on the head, right? Starting a project without this early work is literally like gearing up to climb Everest, but you have no map, you haven't planned a route, and you haven't even all agreed that you're climbing Everest. The stakes are just way too high to just wing it.
So, how do we avoid all that chaos? Well, luckily, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We turn to the industry standard solution, and this is where we bring in the RIBA plan of work, the definitive guide for taking a building from a simple idea to a fully functioning reality. So, what is this thing? Well, the framework comes from RIBA. That's the Royal Institute of British Architects. They created this plan to bring some serious order and clarity to what can be a really complex process. Think of it as a trusted, step-by-step guide that's been the backbone of countless successful projects.
Now, the entire plan is broken down into 8 distinct stages. It covers everything from the very beginning all the way to the building being in use for years. And as you can see, our focus today is right there at the top, the highlighted Stage 0. This is the foundation that everything else gets built on.
So let's zoom in. Stage 0 isn't about the cool stuff like design or materials or what it's going to look like. Nope, it's about pure strategy. It forces everyone involved to just stop for a second and ask the most important questions of all. Why are we even doing this, and what does it need to accomplish to be considered a success? So here's the most important takeaway. Stage 0 is basically the project's big reality check. It's that critical moment to make sure the core idea is actually solid before you start spending tons of money and years of people's time. Getting these big decisions right at the start saves an absolute fortune down the line.
The central goal here is really simple. Does this building actually solve a real business problem? It doesn't matter if the goal is boosting productivity or attracting new talent or serving a community. Stage 0 makes sure the project is the right key for the right lock. It's all about alignment.
Okay, so we get why Stage 0 is so critical. But what actually happens during this stage? What are people doing? Let's break down the core tasks that literally create the project's DNA.
All right, the single most important thing that comes out of Stage 0 is something called the project business case. You should think of this document as the project's constitution. It lays out the entire justification for why this project exists, and it becomes the benchmark for every single decision made from this point forward.
So what makes a business case a good business case? Well, it has to answer 4 huge questions. First, is it feasible? Like, can we technically even do this? Is it viable? Does it make financial sense? Is it achievable? Can we realistically deliver it? And probably most important of all, is it actually aligned with what the client is trying to accomplish in the big picture? Now, to build that solid business case, you can't be vague. You have to get really specific. And that means defining the fundamental building blocks of the project. And these aren't just little details, they're the core rules that are going to guide every decision later on. So what are we talking about? Well, things like the project budget, the hard financial reality, the quality objectives. I mean, what does good actually look like for this project? The sustainability goals, thinking about the long-term impact from day one. And of course, the timeline, mapping out a realistic schedule. This is the project's genetic code, written right at the beginning. So, after all that strategic thinking, what's the big payoff? Why is all this upfront work so incredibly powerful?
Well, this is where we see the true, undeniable value of getting stage 0 right.
Let's just look at the two paths a project can take. On one side, without a strong stage 0, you get unclear goals, scope creep, endless arguments, and budgets that explode. It's a stressful, expensive mess. But with a strong stage 0, you get a clear vision, you get financial certainty, your stakeholders are all on the same page, risks are managed, and you have the best possible shot at finishing on time. I mean, the difference is just night and day.
At the end of the day, it really all comes down to this. You simply cannot build a successful, lasting project on top of a shaky or undefined foundation. The decisions and the conversations that happen in stage 0, that's the bedrock of the entire thing.
And that kind of leaves us with a fascinating thought to chew on. Is it possible that the most important architectural act isn't drawing a line on a page, but actually leading a conversation? By starting with strategy, we make sure that what we build isn't just nice to look at, but that it's meaningful, purposeful, and above all, successful.